Welcome everyone, and welcome Helen, Helen Prince, for joining me today on Your True Self. You're with Deb Courtney from debcourtney.com, and I've got Helen on today, who's always got the most radiant smile, and when she's on screen and even when she's teaching. Helen, I learnt a lot about Creatrix from, and I went through the course with, I went through the course and Helen was conducting it, and it was a great time to go through. Very chilly at the time, but I know you've just finished another course for Creatrix, and you went through it yourself as well, didn't you?
Yep. So I first experienced it back in September 2016.
Wow. Okay. So which has been, a great almost 6 years of kind of a changed life. So, having said that, I'd love to get for you to cover your background a little bit for others to hear, and let them know a little bit more about, what it is that they could do, from where you were. And I know you've told me your story, and it's really interesting, and I'd love for you to be able to share that with others as well.
Yep. Okay. So I started off in more of a corporate-y sort of a background. I was working in hotels and being a PA and all that sort of stuff. And then when I had kids, I didn't have kids until quite late in my life. So when I had kids, I went from this cool, calm, yeah, whatever, it's all cruisy, everything just works out, to this really angry woman who I didn't even recognize after a while, Deb. It was like I had this vision of what I thought motherhood was going to be. Spending stay-at-home mom, and I'd be, making Play-Doh. We don't buy the Play-Doh, we make the Play-Doh because that's more, it's better for them, and making all the food and doing all these arts and crafts and all this sort of thing. So I had this this vision of what I thought motherhood would be. My reality was so different. And because I turned into this angry person who I'd never been this angry person, and I would just yell and snap at the drop of the hat at these poor little kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it didn't sort of happen like that. It was over time.
Yeah.
So by the time I'd noticed what I'd become, I'd had three kids under 6. So any mums listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But then it was also affecting my relationship as well. So I was always cranky at my husband, and I would find all these stupid little things to pick on just to stay angry all the time. And this is my second marriage. And what my pattern is, when in hindsight's a great thing, I noticed back in my life, what I would do is that when relationships got too hard or I didn't like them anymore, I would shut myself off and then I would walk away. That was my pattern.
Yeah.
And I could see that was happening in this one. But this time it's like, well, you can't do that because you've got 3 children, and I actually do like these people, and I do still like my husband. So I didn't want to walk away. So I went looking for something to sort myself out, because I knew that I was the problem. I was the one that needed to sort through my own things. It took me a little bit to get there as well too, because I did a lot of blaming. If they just picked up after themselves, and if they just said, and he did this, and there was a lot of finger pointing before it came back to, okay, well, no, I can't make them change. I've got to change me.
Yeah.
So I went looking for something to do that, and I came across a law of attraction life coaching course, and that introduced me to personal development, because I hadn't really done a lot of personal development before then, because my life was cruisy. And I loved it. I got into Abraham and got into the whole manifesting thing and all that sort of stuff. And so I did this course because I thought, oh my God, this is so amazing. I want to do this. I want to change tact, because I didn't want to go back to a 9-to-5 job as well. I'd had enough time away from that life with being a stay-at-home mom where I didn't want to go back there. So I thought, great, I'm going to be a life coach, and I'm going to just work from home, and I'm going to help other mums who think that they're a failure and are, always angry. I'm going to help them to be the mums they want to be, so that they can have this beautiful life as well. So that was my plan.
Yep.
Right? So I got myself all certified. Yeah, that was the plan. So I got myself certified and got to that point where, right, okay, now you got to go and do something, Helen. Now you've got to go and tell people what you're doing. And what I discovered when, it came to the action part of, my journey was that I still couldn't take the actions.
Yeah.
And even though what I had learned had helped me, it got me sort of from here to here, I kept falling back down. And the biggest thing I struggled with, like I worked with a lot of women as a coach. The majority of them, though, I worked for free. So
Yeah.
I didn't have a business. I had a hobby. And because I would go to these networking events, right? And they would say, go and tell people what you do. This is back when you could actually get together and yeah. And so I'd go to these events, and because I had no confidence, I had no self-belief, I didn't believe that what I could offer would actually help the women, because I knew myself that, yeah, it was only temporary. It was, unless I was constantly working on myself,
Yeah.
I would slip back into the old habits and I would hide again.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I've got 3 kids. I was working part-time there as well, just from home. But it was like, I don't have time to keep working on myself. And if I'm going to help other mums, I can't expect them to do that as well. They're in the same boat as me.
Yeah.
So there was this big, I can't tell people what I do unless I want to do it for free, because if I pay them, I can't guarantee that I can help them. So then I felt guilty for taking somebody's money who I couldn't actually help. So I'm in this constant battle going on. And I'd go to these events and we'd get together and they'd say, say, Helen, what do you do? And I was a master deflector. It would be because I had all of this conflict going on. It'd be like, oh yeah, I do this coaching thing, but what do you do? Tell me about your business. And I would turn it back on them, just like that. It was so fast you'd get whiplash, because I didn't want to talk about myself. I didn't want to tell them what I did, because then that would lead to more questions, and then it would be, oh, I can't do this, and so anyway, that was my cycle. I was doing that for about 10 months. I was trying so hard, Deb, trying so hard to get it off the ground, but I couldn't do it. And then one day my husband said to me, oh, it's probably about time you got a real job, hey? Like, right, mate. Exactly. It was like you just waved this massive red flag in front of a bull. And so I got online, and because the whole time I kept thinking, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be an easier way. I don't have time to keep doing this. There's got to be a way where I can do it once and then get on with life.
Yeah.
All right. But so anyway, so that was always going on in the back of my mind. So when he said this to me, I got online. I'm Googling jobs for coaches was what I was looking for. And I came across Maz and Creatrix.
Yeah.
And as soon as I read what it was all about, it was like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. This is the thing. So I jumped on a call with her, and I had a chat with her about the program, the Creatrix program.
Yeah.
And the whole time in the back of my mind, it's like, just ask her, because I was looking for a job. And that's not what she was offering. She was offering a course. And it's like, just ask her. So I said, oh my God, shut up, brain. And so I said to her, look, actually why I'm calling you is because I'm looking for a job. And she said, oh, that's really interesting, because a lady was meant to start with me this morning in an admin role. And I called her and I said, oh, I just don't think it's going to work, because Maz is very much, she follows her gut. She's very in tune with her gut. And she called this other woman and said, I don't think it's going to work out for us. And that was the same morning. And it's like, oh my God, it's one of those serendipitous moments. It was just beautiful. So I actually started working for Maz in an admin role. And that was in around the August of 2016.
Yeah.
And but I knew I wanted to do the program.
Yeah.
The next one that was coming up was in the September. It was full. At the 11th hour, a lady actually pulled out for personal reasons. She had a death in the family. so she wasn't able to come. So I took her spot.
Oh, fantastic.
And then, yeah, and another one of those, everything's sort of just lining up. And then from that, at that course was where I resolved a lot of stuff around my anger and my resentment and being bitter and all of those sorts of things. But the biggest thing for me was about being seen, because I had this ridiculous fear of being seen and standing out. And I've always been, since a little girl, very, very shy in the background all the time. So when I had creatrix around my fear of being seen, that's when I realized, oh my God, I love teaching. And if anyone had ever said to me, when you're, in your late 40s, you're going to be a teacher, I would have said, no, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because there's no way I'm standing up in front of people and teaching. And that was because of my fear.
Yeah.
And then so from the next course after that was in the November the same year. At that course, I helped Maz deliver part of that program, and I was up in front of people teaching. It was only something very small, but I was up there and I was doing it, and I was comfortable. And from then it just sort of has kept going. And I then trained to be a trainer. I also got out there and got my own clients in my own business to know that I could do it.
Yep.
So I had my own clients going on the side there, working for Maz as well, and learning how to become a trainer. And so since it was probably towards the end of 2017 is when I took on that head trainer role after doing quite a few courses with her. And and the rest is history. I've been doing it ever since, and I love it.
Great trainer. I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
So you've obviously picked up a great, that confidence and that skill to deliver. I mean, I always think, oh, geez, I never thought I'd be, in any sort of, I don't know, academic role or whatever. Never considered myself that. But then, the world just sort of opens up in strange ways, doesn't it?
It does.
And I think at the moment, sometimes it can be really hard to feel that that feeling that things are all happening for the right reasons, and it's harder to get through that. I know it's even for me, and I've done creatrix and I follow the law of attraction and things, but it can still be difficult. And so when you say, it kind of disappears and it comes back, it disappears and doesn't come back, how is it that then there might be something else along the way that's maybe triggers someone? What's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever you have creatrix on, you get your learnings around. It's like you can't unlearn what you've learnt then. It's like if I said to you, Deb, I want you to pretend you don't know how to tie your shoes. It's like, well, I can't, because I know it. All right. So you can't unlearn things. And regardless of what you use in your personal development, your life is about growing and learning. And so as you step up, so what happened with me was that I had plateaued and I couldn't go. I wanted so badly to have this coaching business and to help other women, but I couldn't because of all of my beliefs and my blocks and all of the doubts, the fears, the insecurities, and all of those sorts of things. So once you have to acknowledge what those things are, so then you can then creatrix them. You don't have to go into the story and understand why, because this was another thing with me. It was like, well, I don't know why I don't want to stand out. I don't know why I've got this fear of being seen. I don't know why I don't feel like I'm good enough, because I had a really good childhood. My parents are still together. They've been married for 55 years. So there wasn't a thing that I could pinpoint and say, right, well, when I was 5 years old, this happened and that made me feel not good enough. Okay. There was nothing like that. So I thought, okay, well, now I have to be feeling not good enough for the rest of my life, because I can't pinpoint when it happened or why I feel like that. I just felt like that. So what I love about creatrix is it doesn't matter. You feel what you feel, you believe what you believe. And we know as women, sometimes we feel stuff that is just so irrational, it's not even funny. And then that's when we find, like when with my husband, he'd be like, well, what's wrong with you? You're in such a bad mood, which of course is the worst thing you can say to a woman when she's in a bad mood. And then we were like, well, no. And I had to justify why I felt so cranky.
Yeah.
Because I was just in a bad mood and there was nothing that had happened to cause that. But when somebody says, well, what's wrong with you? And what's, then you feel like you have to justify. And that's when I would say stupid things like, well, you didn't put your socks away, or you didn't wipe the benches, or something stupid to try and justify why I felt in a bad mood. So with Creatrix, I love that it doesn't matter why. You feel it, you believe it, and that's it, and it's capping you. So once you can acknowledge that, you get your learnings around that, and then what happens is that you can then step up to that next level. And that's what I did. I stepped up to that next level, and so now I'm here. And now I'm doing things that I would never have done before because all those fears stopped me from doing it. So this is where new things come into your awareness, and this is where you can get triggered by new stuff. It's not that it wasn't there before, it just you weren't aware of it. All right, it's like if you when you're a baby, right, and the first time you are aware that you have fingers and toes is you're a few months old. And it says, oh my God, I've got these. And you're so fascinated as a baby. You see this in your own children. They're fascinated by these fingers and toes and things because it's come into their awareness. Does it mean that they didn't have fingers and toes before that moment? No, it doesn't. It's just come into their awareness. So as you step up and grow, these new things will come in. And everything that's been happening in the last 2 years has just amplified all of the doubts and fears that were already there for people. But what we do as women, we get really good at managing and coping. And it's like, oh no, it's okay. I'll just push through until we burn out. We go into overwhelm. Our body just shuts down because you can't cope anymore. Because it becomes like it's a coping mechanism to keep us moving forward, because we don't want to be sitting rocking in the corner. We want to get up and we want to keep going. So we're told just push through. And that's actually the worst advice for a woman, because it does lead to all of that burnout and her body just shuts down. We don't handle stress the same way men do. We're not meant to. We're not designed physically to handle stress the way that they do. We are supposed to stop and allow things to settle. But all of the head chatter, and because I used to feel guilty for not doing anything. I used to feel guilty for going and having a coffee, for spending money on myself, for doing something that wasn't work. It's like I can't just sit still. And that's something I noticed in my mum as well. It's a pattern, and it happens in a lot of women. And so it's until you actually resolve all of those things fully, properly, you're going to keep replaying the patterns. And so it's not that. So once you learn something with Creatrix, you learn it. You can't unlearn it. Something new will happen regardless of whether you're using Creatrix or any other modality. The new things are only there because they're now in your awareness. And so you just sort those out, and then you can step up. I still have Creatrix whenever I need it, because it's when I was doing, when I got into the training role, because I was always such a quiet person, being out there in front and the different personalities, and Deb, you know all about DISC. So I was more of the S. I was an SQ before I had Creatrix. So very much the supportive role in the background, don't stand out, let other people. And I would ask, not tell people. It was very like that. So being in that training role, I got triggered a lot of new things, which I would never have realized until I was standing up in front of someone and talking. And there were things that I had to then resolve. So that made me a better trainer. And I kept stepping up. I'd like to explain Creatrix as it's like instead of going up the stairs to get to your next level and get to your learnings, we're jumping in the elevator. And so it's like we're going boom, boom. It's like we're in the express where you just go up and there's no down. Whereas on the stairs, it was like I would go up and then I'd slide down the stairs, or I'd get tired and I'd fall down again. But this just keeps you growing without that backwards regression sort of thing.
Yeah. That's, I think that's, I guess, what we all find, and even as transformologists, we do go through needing to have that kind of, not a top up, but it's just that level of awareness is changing each time. And because you almost forget sometimes, don't you, how far you've actually come. So you think, oh, well, I must still have lots of problems. Because we just start getting on with ourselves, you don't kind of realize that that's change. How did you find, when you went through that, how did you find dealing with people that you already knew?
In what way?
Like in the fact that, you had actually gone through a lot of growth and stuff. How did you find you reacted, or other people reacted to you being what I call your true self, as opposed to the self that's been a little bit hidden and hiding behind other people? What sort of reactions did you find?
It was more of you know how people see things in you that you just can't see? It was more of people noticed that I was just being who they already knew me to be, but I didn't know me to be that. Yeah. So it wasn't a surprise for them, but they did notice differences in how I just held myself, what I was doing, how I was going from strength to strength in different things. They notice all of these changes that sort of happened in an accelerated space of time.
Yeah.
So it was like I guess for them, they were seeing me finally doing what they knew I could do. But it was something that I never realized that I could do. We always see things in other people. We can't see it in ourselves, though.
Yeah, and that's so true, isn't it? You often see it in someone, you're like, I knew you could do that. Like, really? I always
Yeah, but you've got to know it yourself. And this is the thing with it, positive affirmations and other people telling you, and even you telling you that, come on, you can do this. I know, and you believe in yourself. That's fine. And sometimes, some parts of the month you'll be in there and you'll go, yeah, you're awesome, and I believe in you, and yeah, that's right. And then the next week you can be saying the exact same things to yourself, and there'll be that little devil on your shoulder saying, no, you're not. You're kidding yourself. What's going on here? So it's that internal head chatter. So with Creatrix, it it in the deepest part of your core, and you don't have to convince yourself. You don't have to do affirmations. You don't have to tell yourself or remind yourself, just like you don't have to remind yourself what your name is. You just know it to be 100% true. And that to me is so freeing, because then I don't have to spend time on that. I just spend time on doing what I want to do and on the things that really make me feel happy and make me feel fulfilled, which is what I'm doing now.
And so I think it's good to let people know that with Creatrix, and you said it yourself, if you go and see someone else, and that can be a good, we all start this sort of journey for different reasons. I know originally mine was that I'd then gone and had 2 miscarriages in a row, and that kind of got me started on that whole, The Secret, the law of attraction, and progress, and knowing that there must be something else out there, because doing all of those sorts of affirmations, that it really is good, but just wanting to have it change and gone. And I saw that, I think I'd seen the ad for Creatrix some time before, and obviously it just wasn't the right timing, because I thought it was something I wanted to do but didn't do, and then obviously then it popped up at another time, and it just seemed like the most appropriate time, and I needed to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what was nice is, like you said, we didn't need to figure out what was going on. We didn't need to relive any story, because sometimes you feel like, well, I haven't even got a story. I come from good parents. I've had a good life. I didn't really want for anything too much. What's my excuse? What's my excuse for feeling like this?
And that creates a whole nother bunch of doubts and fears and insecurities. And people look at you and think, well, you know, what have you got to whinge about? It's like, well, nothing really. And now I feel really bad for wanting more, but I want more, you know? So is it wrong that I want more? And you feel all guilty about that. Yeah, everyone's got their own stuff and their own circumstance. And that's just it. That's how it is. And we're told that we can be, do, have whatever we want. So if anything's stopping you from having that, then it's up to you to change that. It's you can't wait for somebody else's permission, and you can't be scared of what somebody else is going to think, or, you know, these are all just beliefs that we can create tricks as well, because at the end of the day, we're here for a limited amount of time. And that's it. And you do have to get where you need to get to on your own. It's your own journey and all of that. However, when something comes across your plate, you're the one who chooses whether you look at it or whether you ignore it, and you just keep pushing through. And we've all got to get to that point where, you know, enough's enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, how do you want to spend the rest of your life? And I knew that I didn't want to, because my children were still quite young at that point, I didn't want to be the parent who has messed up these children emotionally. I didn't want them to be in a broken home. So as much as I wanted to change for me, I think my biggest motivator was for my kids. And I didn't want to be that role model for my daughter as well, who is, you know, you can't say to her, just stand up and feel confident and get out there and talk to people and do things. Or it's like, well, I'm not. You do it, but I'm not. Because they don't care what you say. Kids don't care what you say. They care what you do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be that role model for her as well.
Well, I think they're very lucky, and they do have an amazing role model. And
thank you.
I'm very lucky to have someone like you in my life. And just, you know, you've taught me a lot, and I think, and I'm grateful each time that I get to see your lovely face and get to have these sorts of conversations, and keep going a little bit deeper and deeper. And, you know, you're right next to the source. You're there with Maz doing the do. So thank you so much for your time, and I'd really
very welcome.
Love to perhaps get you back on again some other time and talk a little bit more, because you've got so much to offer, and maybe, you know, go through a little bit about the course or something, because I think that would be, you know, being able to do that as well as actually being a transformologist, or just what it does to you in the just going through the course is sometimes enough. So thank you, Helen. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Anytime, Deb.
That's great. I will see you hopefully one day soon in sunny Queensland. Maybe next year.
Well, conference next year.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Helen.
All right, darling. Bye-bye.